Hello, everybody, and welcome on into another fantastic episode of Conversations. I'm your host, Ruth Patrick, and today I am very excited to be joined by Professor Kim Shelton. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, it's great to be here. Mhm.
So, your career and reading the bio that is on the Mansfield page is awesome because you have done so much. And I think that is really cool and really important too, that you've you've had the ability to jump roles and move around in a lot of different things and fill a lot of hats. Early in your career, how important was that, or how important was that ability to be able to fill whatever role and jump into whatever role was asked of you?
That I think in the time that I actually graduated with my master's degree and then went right into secondary education before I went on for, like an advanced degree. Um, it was extremely important at that time because I think with my generation, it was no longer the type of thing where you have one job and you're going to have that job and you're going to retire in that job. It was a type of thing where you better make yourself marketable, even in education, to be able to, do several things. Even with the quote unquote traditional route, starting in like classroom teaching. Even when I was a graduate student, I was thinking outside of the box. So instead of doing like a student teaching experience in just your regular classroom, I found a dropout prevention program, which was really unique at the time in Binghamton High School. And so I was working with my cooperative teacher, who was a social studies teacher in that dropout prevention program. And those students, they had all the same teachers, within that block. So those students became very tight knit. And so that was like a huge support system for them to basically be able to graduate for students who were targeted otherwise that would not happen probably.
When you work with a program like that, and obviously at times I'm sure it can be a high stress, high emotional type time working, but what are the challenges, and then what are the biggest takeaways for you when you work with a program like
Great question, Joe. The challenges are when you're talking about the reasons why students were probably placed in a program like that in the first place is that prior to you coming in, it's not like they probably had much success. So really the biggest challenge and obstacle is building that trust with the student, building that relationship that they can trust you and that they know that you are genuine and real. So if you can break through that wall that many times is put up, then you can find that you can have success. And when you're able to partner with the student and have them realize that they can reach for their dreams and their goals, that is what is the most rewarding thing ever. So I am so happy that I pretty much every step of the way have not chosen necessarily the easy path to take in education,
that? Well, two, I working and being able to be a part of different programs, and like you said, it's not the easiest path. It's an emotionally stressful path, I'm sure, at times, but to have those experiences and then continue to move up and move on that into the roles that you have, having those types of experiences, how do they help each step of the way?
um, that uh,
Or
that
is that a simple answer? Yeah.
yeah, that is what is the interesting thing about the path that I took. because maybe looking on paper, you might not necessarily see the connection, but for me, every single step I've learned something. I've had the great benefit of having some type of experience, something that I did, or a relationship that I had, that allowed me to go to that next step, something that I needed. It was more tools in my toolkit that allowed me to be successful at that next job, which I didn't even know necessarily that I was going to need those experiences, or you know, uh, really those competencies, that I gained along the way.
And so the role here, one of the roles here now at Mansfield, the director of Trio Student Support Services. And for those who might not know exactly what Trio is, what is the Trio program?
Well, in a nutshell, it is a student success program. It is one of the federal TRIO programs. Our program is the Student Support Services Program, which basically supports students to retain them, and then for them to graduate with that bachelor's degree. And so what does that mean in TRIO for us at Mansfield University? It's about all the programming and support that we provide. So I would say first and foremost, it's the advising piece, which with us, it's more that we call it the counseling and coaching piece. And so we know that students have their primary academic advisors in their academic departments, but we serve a role that is supportive to that one. I mean, yes, students can come to us for academic reasons, of course, we do that too, but students come to us for personal, financial, social, they know that they can come to us for whatever's going on. Because we don't want students being burdened with things. We want them to be able to concentrate on doing well. But we also offer, tutoring, within our program, and try to hit those, targeted areas that students really need that support in. We offer all kinds of workshops, activities. We even have cultural enrichment. Our students are so diverse. They come from, different walks of life. So we can't, categorize in any one way what is a TRIO student, because they are, they look so different, they're the spectrum. But we do have a lot of students who may not have had some of those cultural enrichment experiences. Everyone hasn't had the opportunity to travel, or theater, some of the arts and music things. So we try to provide some of those experiences for our students. Even things like bringing in Nicole Leffel-Hock, to talk about, things like etiquette and stuff like that, so that they're prepared for the real world where, many times before the pandemic, interviews would take place over meals, and a student would need to know how to navigate through that environment, to impress that employer, and so, it's pretty much whatever the student needs are things that we would provide in our program. In addition to some of the financial things like scholarships, which students can work towards, and then loans like textbooks and laptop loans that are so valuable, some of the basic needs as well. So we're kind of like full service.
It's interesting too, and you touched on it a little bit, but especially like you said there's not a specific TRIO student. It is a wide spectrum. You have to focus individually and really get to know the student. Is that an easy process, or do you sometimes get some pushback with some of the students?
I would say that just like anybody else, we probably will have different experiences, but for the most part, because of the way that we are designed, we're able to, like I said, we're able to kind of like break through any walls that are built up. And over time, we are like the safety net for those students. They know that they can come to us as, TRIO faculty and staff, but also even the physical space, is a safe space for them. Mm-hmm.
And obviously this year, 2020, has probably not been the easiest time for your program in terms of some students who are here, some who are not. What have been the challenges of this year for the TRIO program?
Oh, wow. Probably much of like that, pretty much educators are saying. I know for our program, I'll speak obviously specifically for the TRIO program at Mansfield University, we've worked really hard to make sure that we duplicated our efforts. And what I mean by that is because we had students that were on campus, our faculty and staff made a commitment to physically have a presence. So we even offered in-person workshops and activities. Now, with social distancing, with masking, and in safety, but yes, we decided to do that because we didn't, especially the freshmen, this being their new, first experience, we wanted them to have an opportunity to be able to connect and, have, that sense of, support. So we did in-person programming. And our computer lab was opened, our study space, all that was available for students. So students that were on campus or local still had that environment in which they would have had previously. But we had to pretty much duplicate things for everyone else, who was home at that point in time and was not, on campus. And so, we, of course, like everyone else, we did the whole Zooming thing. We made, several, personal phone calls. We emails, probably even more than we would have done in the past. But texting, anything that we could think of to continue to connect with our students is what we did. And we didn't want the students who were at home to feel like they missed out. So, if we had programming, we made sure that, if it wasn't a live Zooming session, well, we would be able to record something and share it with them. And so that they could at least feel like they didn't miss out on something, so we did our best to kind of include everybody regardless of their situation.
Yeah. I'm sure one of the best moments for you are when you see these students get to walk across and get their diploma, and with some challenges that they've had, and able to find that goal, get to the run through the tape, as my dad used to say to us. But when you see these students who have struggled and then gone through your program and then achieved that goal, what does that feeling, and what is that feeling for you when you see the success of your students?
That means everything. Through their journey, like I said, we've built this connection because TRIO, it's not just a program. We're really like a family, and so I could not be any more proud and delighted, for the students. And that's why we keep that connection with our alum, and we still, that's why we have like our social media too, so that, which is like, I don't even know how many students are that, but like, it's crazy. But, we keep that connection with them because they are like our extended family. And you mentioned, how that impacts me. Like I said, I could not be more proud, and that's because they are just such incredibly talented students, and I've seen them grow over the years, and they have impacted my life so much more than I could ever do anything for them, so I'm getting so much more out of, you know, uh, being able to work with them, um, and I feel so special to be able to have these opportunities to be able to have that, and share those things with the students and be part of basically their journey.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just remarkable. I want to switch a little bit gears wise to your education philosophy. You have it listed on your bio, but I wanted to talk to you about it very specifically in terms of you've stated that your educational philosophy is you want to make sure that students are provided with resources that they need to succeed. So, talk a little bit about how or why that is your educational philosophy and what you take out of that to provide for Trio or the rest of the students you work with.
I think what it boils down to is my philosophy, making sure that students have what they need to be successful, really is making sure that that's an individualized approach. It's not a one size fits all. Counseling end of things, the advising end, coaching end, or in the classroom, you still have to do that. And so what like with the classroom, like my approach, is really, I do a lot of project-based assessment so that students have the ability to uniquely show what it is that they learn, instead of just like your standard test and assessment. I feel really strongly about those types of things, that a student should have the ability, to show what it is that they have learned using their strengths, so that they're not put in a position where they might not be able to do as well as they could, and that can happen with a standard type assessment.
I've noticed, especially with this year being as crazy as it is, one of the actual good things, I guess you can say, you can take out is really there's been a larger and louder conversation about mental health and the mental health of students.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, your job, you deal with the mental health of these students all the time. But do you think the fact that, I mean, nationally, people are starting to talk about and people are starting to realize just some of the pressures and the true mental health issues that sometimes students go through that I'm sure you've seen all the time, is that helpful to try and talk through with students who might be the fact that it's now more widely, I don't want to say understood, but more widely seen?
Yeah, that is huge right now. Mental health and the awareness, and it's because of the pandemic, like you mentioned. And I guess I would first want to say is, our TRIO faculty and staff, we do not take the place of the wonderful work that Jolene Meisner and the counseling staff are doing. They are doing terrific work, and they are the professionals in that area dedicated for that purpose. And so any appropriate referrals would be made to them. So the real therapeutic stuff, of course, they're doing all that. But as you realize, Drew, we still deal with that, within TRIO. And so it's really our students that have really stepped up and, have provided and really just, that some of those missing pieces, so separate from workshops that, like, say, I myself or one of the faculty members would provide, we had a student intern who was in our program, and is it okay for me to even mention her name? Because she was within Taylor Coatser. You know, she just finished her interning in our program for the fall semester. And she did things like, you know, really creative projects with students, like painting and, you know, on canvas and even rocks and, you know, those types of things. So bringing, like, you know, art and creativity into the TRIO program. And, you know, so we really, you know, looked at broadening what we would usually provide as a program to just for students to have that outlet, you know. You know, yes, the academic stuff and all the other things are really important, but they did need just an outlet, you know, to come together and just do something, like I said, that where they could just be creative, be free to be themselves, and more importantly, express themselves. And so what we also hope with one of our people doing their practicum, JD, Tanera Duncan Washington, like in the spring, you know, to pick up with the spoken word and things like that, and have those types of offerings and things for our students as well. Mm-hmm.
How important is the students' reaction to one another? And I'm sure some of them, obviously, a lot of them come from different, but in similar circumstances or needing this. How important is that student interaction with each other?
It, you know, it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this fall semester and even, you know, part of the previous spring has really taught us how important that is. We cannot take for granted students being able to interact with other students. And so it's funny because I just had a conversation about this, but even with our own, you know, classes, we know that you know, our faculty, they are, you know, they're experts in their fields and they do a wonderful job. But the difference between, you know, not necessarily the in-person, you know, the 25% of those classes we had, but between the synchronous and asynchronous, and the benefit that the students are getting in the synchronous classes, where at least they can still come together. They can still have those discussions together, you know, in a, you know, live, you know, format, which really has had a substantial impact on students feeling that connection with their education and feeling like they're still part of the university, even if they're taking those courses from, you know, their bedroom at home or something, you know.
Yeah, no, it's I can completely see how truthfully important that interaction is, to just try. I want to switch gears here a little bit and talk about some of the things you enjoy outside of Mansfield University. And I saw you love photography, and my eyes just went giant and massive because I'm with you. And I'm sure, like, first of all, I want to ask, what was it about photography that made you fall in love with photography?
Well, it was really my husband. I have to give him all the credit because my husband, he's really the one that is, like, when you talk about creative individuals, you know, like the artistic people, even though he has an accounting background, that's really him, who he is as a person. And that's why years ago, he began his own photography business. And so by doing that, I had an opportunity to be one of the photographers in the business.
Mhm,
And so that was really, I mean, even as crazy busy as I am,
mhm.
that really was a huge outlet for me that I didn't even know that I was missing, you know, to be able to kind of, um, you know, express myself in that creative way, you know, which I wasn't even sure that I had the capability to do that, you know.
Mhm.
And I surprised and shocked myself with how um, how really good I am at it, you know? And even my husband will say, man, you know, you really caught that, because if you know anything about photography, which it seems like you do, Drew, you can have like 50 photographers, you know, in the same area taking, you know, photographs of the same things, and everybody's going to have a different eye. Everybody's going to have a different perspective, a different opinion. And so you're going to have like 50 different, you know, views of, you know, something. And that's what the beauty is in photography, you know. And so when I think about photography, it really is artistic photography. It's not just taking pictures, but it really is capturing, you know, that moment, you know, in time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have my camera that, like, during the pandemic and when you couldn't really do anything, my outlet was going for drives, and so I bring the camera, and like Tioga County is beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
and so that became really my outlet there. But yeah, I want to talk the creative aspect of photography. You're not wrong when you say the you can have 10 different people in charge of shooting the same thing, and they will all have that different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very cool. Like, I think, what are some of the things that you've shot that you uh that were some of the most memorable things that you shot?
Oh wow, there's so many. But I'll mention there was there was this was a shoot with a model, and this model, her name was Sarah, and she's a natural, you know what I mean. And we were building her portfolio for her, and so one of the shoots was at a laundromat, and you know, we were doing all these different things, and you know, um, a lot of it, for whatever reason, kind of crazy, we were shooting more like not necessarily totally face on, but you know, doing sides and things. But something told me, let me just move all the way over to the end, right? And it just so happened that all of the dryers, in like, she was like in one of them, okay, and like hanging out of one of them, and all of the dryer doors were all opened, and it just, I mean, it was incredible. And I caught that, you know, I caught her in the one which was kind of like right, like almost like centered between them, and then all of these like doors like behind her, like perfectly opened. And it was like, you know, that a shot like that is something that, you know, you kind of, it was almost like my spirit was, you know, leading me there.
Mm-hmm.
Another instance, totally different. You know, in Italy, we were at the Trevi Fountain, and everybody's taking pictures of the Trevi Fountain, of course, okay? But there was this gentleman. He was an older gentleman, and you know, it was raining that day, so we all had our umbrellas and everything, and those were colorful pictures. Can't even, you know, begin to talk about that. But he just had this expression on his face while taking in this, I mean, just incredible sight, right? So, you know, like I said, everybody else is taking pictures of the Trevi Fountain. I turned and I looked at him, and I got this shot, and like that expression, it's like golden. You know what I mean? Yeah, like people, I love people, and, you know, just capturing them in moments, you know. I am awed by, of course, architecture and scenery and things like that too. But there's nothing better than people, in my opinion.
It's, I think something that's really cool to take away too is I think the fact that you mentioned your love for people and your love for that really helps in both of these things, both getting that moment, the moment with photography, and also with the trio program. So there's always that combined of people are the most important thing. The other thing that I saw that you were a part of, that that perked my ears is you're also on the executive board for Girl Scouts of New York Penn Pathways.
Mhm.
And I I talk about like scouting and Girl Scouts with a lot of people because I was what I consider an honorary Girl Scout because my mother was a Girl Scout leader and my sister was in Girl Scouts, so my butt got dragged to every every event. But what was it about Girl Scouts that got you interested?
Well, I started out as a Girl Scout myself, and had that amazing experience as a girl, and so I grew up knowing the benefit, of Girl Scouting and what it does for girls. And so when you talk about our motto, building courage, confidence, and character, and making the world a better place, I know firsthand that's true. So as an adult, when I had my own daughter, I definitely wanted her to have part of that experience, and then from rejoining, as an adult, as a volunteer at that point, really getting involved and then eventually becoming part of the board. Um, but yeah, like you ask, why would I be part of that? I mean, there is no greater leadership organization for girls and women than Girl Scouts, so it's easy, why I would want to be a part of a strong, incredible institution like that. Mhm.
No, and I understand. Like I said, I was brought to a lot of things, but I saw my sister go through. She got her gold award. Uh, so she went through all of the stuff and getting that leadership promise and what are there similarities in some of the things you've done in terms of helping scouts and then helping students in the trio program? Are there similarities there?
You know, um, Interesting enough, until you probably said that, I really wouldn't have necessarily even made that specific connection there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, for sure. Because when you're um, when you're working with girls or women or whatever, and building, that leadership, ability through whatever venue that is. Um, Definitely with my students, I mean, isn't that what it's all about? Like, yes, you know, um, everything is about um, them being retained and them graduating and getting that degree. But more importantly, it's for them to be successful once they leave that university. And so that they are that leader, and can continue to grow, in whatever comes next for them. So yeah, most definitely. Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, I want to switch gears here as we get towards the end of our show here. I have two questions. I don't know if you've listened to any of the other podcasts, but two questions I ask everyone who comes on that have literally nothing to do with anything. But they're just two fun questions to really end the show. And the first one is, what is your go-to meal to impress? It can be you making the meal, it can be a place you go, but your go-to meal to impress.
Can I answer it both ways?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I guess for my own personal meal that I would make, and this is something that, has changed obviously over the years. Um, it's probably not something that you would normally think, okay, that would even be impressive. But my chicken cacciatore is like so tasty and so authentic. Like it's really, really good, And so that would be my meal to impress. Even though I make lots of other meals, and during the pandemic, I've been able to really like cook like crazy. So um, I have ignited another passion, that I had. Um, Now, as far as a meal, if it's going out, oh my goodness, really, oh man, there are like so many things that I could choose, but maybe I would say there's a restaurant in my home area, right?
Mhm.
It's called Remlick's, and it has everything is just up a notch. Like nothing is like normal, you know what I mean? And so it's probably any meal on that menu. So like if I was going to bring somebody out and try to impress them, I'd probably either bring them to Remlick's, or the same thing I would say about well, it's not Lampy's anymore. It's now McCoy's. They just changed the name. So it's a combination of what Lampy's was and what the number 5 used to be in my area. But those two places are probably the key places that I would go to because they're just really innovative with their food. And they, most importantly, and this is something that whether you're doing something at home, just the fact that they use the freshest ingredients that they have their hands on. And so local fresh ingredients are the key to successful meals. And both of those places are excellent at them. And like I said, in my own cooking, that's what I found too, to really go for the freshest things that you can get your hands on.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And then the second question, we do a lot of speaking. I'm sure you do a lot of speaking, but we all have that one moment that things went horribly wrong. I don't need to know the whole story, but just in 3 words, and I'll give you mine, your worst public speaking moment for me was high school appliances bleach are my 3 words or phrases. And there will be no follow-up question to this one.
Oh my. 3 words, Drew? Really?
3 words or phrases. It can be phrases too.
Okay. Young woman. Oh my goodness. Why? Of course, the last thing I'm like stumped on. I would be, for me, because I guess because I'm a talker, it would be easier just to explain the situation, but I really am going to just try to do this, Drew.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Women's program. Young women. Bombed subject matter or something. I don't know. Like I just didn't pick the right topic. Put it that way for the group.
All right, but there will be no follow-up question.
Yes. I was like, just did not pick the right material. It just didn't hit that population like I thought it would. I thought it would be great, and it just didn't go over the way I thought it would. I should have picked another subject, another topic. So,
All right. Well, Professor Shelton, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the show.
Mm-hmm. Well, Drew, I am just really delighted that I get to, even though it's Zoom, see you, and for us to be able to have, this is now experience together. So thank you so much for having me. It's been great, and I wish you the best. Please, in this pandemic, continue to be well and safe, and I wish you health and happiness.
Thanks very much.
Mm-hmm.
And that will conclude another great episode of Conversations. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time.